Hey, what's up guys? I'm Aaron from Finctum Languages, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about the process that I go through when I'm trying out new resources to learn a new foreign language. And there's three main qualities about language learning resources that I want to talk to you about in regards to whether an app or a website or a program is a higher quality program or a lower quality one that I'm probably going to abandon as I make my way through the language that I'm learning. And now, rating language learning resources can be difficult, and there's not a really concrete way of quantifying which ones are better and which ones are worse. But there are a few measurable qualities that we can talk about that I want to address in this video. And those three things that I want to talk about are: when I'm choosing a language learning resource, I look for something that is scalable, systematic, and that is designed specifically for my target language. Now, I'm going to give a few examples of different apps and resources that I think do well and do poorly in each of these three qualities. And that's not to say that any one of these apps is really good or really bad, but it's just things to think about and weigh as you're making your decision about which apps and which resources and which websites and books you want to choose as you make your way through learning whatever language you're learning. Some resources will be low on one of these three qualities, but they might still be a good resource. So these three things that I look for are not the end all, but they are a good guide to helping you think about what you want to use. All right, so scalable. What does it mean for an app or a program to be scalable? Well, what I mean by that is that the app or the website or the program grows with you as you progress through the language. It doesn't stop after the beginner level. And this is important because I find a lot of resources out there, especially some of the cheaper ones, low-end ones, they just teach you things like, hello, how are you? Fine, thanks. And you? Goodbye, please, you're welcome, things like that. And they stop being useful very quickly, and you grow out of them. And so especially if you're paying money for an app or a program, you don't want to find something that's like that, where you just grow out of it and then you're done. A few examples that I could give you of low scalability are Duolingo, Drops, and those Pimsleur courses that only have one unit in the course. All right, medium scalability would be things like Pimsleur if they have 5 courses, right? Because then you have about 75 hours worth of courses to go through, and it can take you up relatively far to, an intermediate B level, something like that. LanguagePod 101, which has a decent amount of content, but you eventually will run out if you keep going through your ThaiPod 101 or FrenchPod 101. Also, Memrise and Anki decks, where you can create your own flashcards for yourself, and really, they can keep going on forever, but the usefulness of these apps will start to dwindle as time goes on. Because when you first start and you can use the pre-made courses on there, that's pretty useful, and it's a lot more work to create your own decks on Memrise or on Anki. A few examples of high scalability in an app would be HelloTalk, which you can continue to use for basically forever. You'll never run out of things to say when you're having conversations with real people. Same goes for Link. You can always import new material that you're interested in reading and listening to onto Link. And also italki, because you can continually hire people to have conversations and do lessons with you all the way up to the point where you are fluent in the language and you don't feel like you need to do it anymore. The next quality I look for in a language learning program is it systematic? And what I mean by systematic is, does it work you through the whole process of learning little by little, step by step? Programs that are systematic teach you one thing, and then they give you a little bit of practice on that thing. They move on to teach you something else, but then they go back later and review the thing that they taught you in the first place. Apps that are systematic leave no holes in the teaching process. Okay, they don't expect you to know things that they haven't taught you yet. They guide you through the whole process and they make no assumptions about what you already know. It's nice to work through one of these programs from start to finish because then your study will be focused and you can be pretty confident they're not leaving gaps in your knowledge as you work your way through. A few examples of apps that are not very systematic are LanguagePod 101, which I don't understand why they do this, but they'll teach you some words and phrases in one episode and then never come back to them. It's like they don't even care if you retain the information that they just taught you. I would say Link and HelloTalk also have relatively low systematicity because there's really no telling what parts of the language you're going to be exposed to as you progress through the language. It's just kind of up to the whim of whatever comes your way that day. An example of medium systematicity would be Duolingo, where they do relatively start you off pretty easy with more basic words and then work your way up. And they don't leave out a whole lot of stuff, but there is some element of randomness about what's going to come your way that day. And whatever phrases and sentences they choose to throw at you in a certain day might not necessarily be relevant to the place that you're at in your language learning process. A good example of high systematicity would be most school courses, where they start off assuming you know nothing in the entry-level 101 class, and then they teach you every step of the way, usually reminding you of things you've learned in the past and giving you some review of those things, but always working forward. Pimsleur and Mingle languages are also two resources that follow pretty closely to this method. And the last quality I want to mention is look for apps and resources that are designed with your target language in mind. They're designed specifically for the language that you're learning. That means they're going to have some experts in your target language come up with a course specifically designed to teach you the words and phrases that are most common in your target language, not in your native language. They don't try to force your target language to fit into the mold of your native language. And I can give you an example of this because when I was learning Thai, I realized that a lot of Thai people would say this phrase to me. They would say, su su, which means keep fighting. At least that's how you would translate it literally. And you use this phrase all the time when you're speaking Thai in order to encourage someone. It means keep going, keep fighting, keep up the good fight, something along those lines. And it's a very common thing to say in Thai. Unfortunately for Thai speakers who are learning English, it's not a common thing to say in English. In fact, people would probably be very confused if you just went up to them on the street and told them to keep fighting. So if you're going to design an English course for people who speak Thai, you would not teach them how to translate the phrase su su into English. What you would do is you would teach them words and phrases that English speakers use in the same situation that a Thai speaker would use the phrase su su. Things like, keep going, you're doing great, don't stop, keep up the good work. Things like that. Now, you might find a good application that teaches a lot of different languages, but the important thing is that it doesn't treat every language the same. This is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, because I've run into some apps and programs before that take a list of English phrases and just translate them into a whole bunch of different languages. And that's kind of appealing for some people because a lot of times apps that do that are able to teach over 100 different languages. The problem is that languages just aren't cookie cutter like that. Imagine you're learning an indigenous language from somewhere deep in the Amazon. You're probably not able to find a whole lot of resources that teach you that language, which is why you would be really excited when you find one, like maybe Bluebird Languages or something like that, that has tons of different language options available. But generally speaking, if you find an app that teaches that many languages, it's because they treat every language as a cookie cutter. So when it comes time for you to learn the word for snow, there might not be a word for snow in the language that you're going to try to learn. So either they have to come up with a word for snow or try to say the next closest thing, which might not actually be accurate to what the word snow means. Or maybe the word for finger and the word for toe is the same in the language that you're trying to learn. But because they're different words in English, the app is forced to have to come up with some kind of distinction between these two words. A couple apps that I find to be really low in this area are Bluebird Languages and Drops. I don't know exactly what into the development of these two apps, but at least it seems to me like what they did is take a preset list of English phrases and then translated every one of these phrases into a bunch of different languages, which is why they're able to offer so many different languages, but it's a lower quality than if they had designed a course specifically for each individual language that they teach. The perfect example of an app that would be high in this area is italki, because no matter what language you're learning, you're speaking with a tutor or an expert who is specifically going to teach you their language in the way that they speak it. It's a very individualized experience for whatever language you're learning. Pimsleur is also a good example of this, because even though they teach a whole bunch of different languages, every course for each individual language is designed specifically for that language, with no other language in mind. So hopefully this video has helped you come up with some good ideas of things to think about as you're deciding what apps and what resources to use as you're learning your target language. That's all I have for this video, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.